My name is Stephanie Lutz, and I'm introducing our honored guest today. I recognize a lot of faces from our Help 100 class. Lieutenant Colonel has a fan post all the way on campus that we get to hear from again today. Let me read his bio and then add a few thoughts that I've had since hearing him present a couple hours ago. Lieutenant Colonel John Westhoff is an Army physician and proud graduate of BYU in 1995. Dr. Westhoff is a board certified in emergency medicine, public health, and general preventive medicine, and occupational medicine. In over 20 years of active military service, he has addressed public health issues from all over the world, both in the U.S., Puget Sound, Washington, Baghdad, rural Arkansas, West Africa, and even Japan. He currently serves as the Chief of Preventive Medicine at Landshut, how do you say that? Landshut. Regional Medical Center in Germany, which is where he traveled from to be with us today, and is the regional consultant for preventive medicine for the U.S. Army's Regional Health Command in Europe. In addition to his military responsibilities, Dr. Westhoff is a member of the Public Health and Injury Prevention Committee of the American College of Emergency Physicians and the Electronic Cigarette Writing Group of the American College of Preventive Medicine. And that's more of the topic he'll be speaking on today with vaping. He's also a member of the Wilderness Medical Society and a task force member of the National Health and Safety Team of the Boy Scouts of America. Dr. Westhoff is an avid skier. Hope we got some good snow while he was here in Utah. He's a backpacker and a father of 5. He's happily married to Rachel Rackham, former Rachel Rackham of Thousand Oaks, California for 24 years. And his son attends BYU. His daughter-in-law is one of our public health students. And we're really honored to have him here. He seems like just my kind of public health guy. He can take any topic and talk about risk and sometimes how in public health we over-sensationalize things and make it feel like everyone's going to contract this disease or everyone. And so to do a real true risk assessment to see what some of our probabilities are for coming in contact with some of these diseases. So we're thrilled to have him and his time, and please be attentive. For students, we would love for you guys to fill out evaluations, an evaluation on this presentation. So if you go to Facebook, you should all be friends of ours, the Department of Health Science, and there is a Qualtrics link for a survey on Facebook. So during the presentation, even though it will look like we're not paying attention, fill out that evaluation, and on your way out the door, if you'll show that URL that you completed that survey, then you can help yourself to kettle corn and vegetables, all in the corn family, vegetable family. So, any questions about the Facebook evaluation? Okay, we'd love to hear your feedback and accommodate your needs as students. And with that, we'll turn the time over to Dr.
Those of you that were at my talk earlier know that I'm a former Scoutmaster. It's awesome to have a couple of my former Boy Scouts in the audience. 494, yo, represent. Love the Eagle Scout, try to really finish it over. Outstanding. Unlike Chris, this is not like my life's purpose and direction. Vaping is sort of something I fell into, hanging out with other public health types. Sometimes it happens. You know, stuff just has to get done, and people say, "Hey, well, we want to do the e-cigarette policy rewrite," and you go, "Is there anything else?" No. Okay, fine. And so I kind of stumbled into it. But anything, this is the great thing about public health. No matter how boring or dry it sounds, once you start learning about it, it starts to become awesome. It's like fractal. And if you know what that means, I was a physics major in undergrad. So like you zoom in on it, and just like there's just more and more and more. It's like the gospel, right? You get asked to give a talk, and it's like about faith, and you're like, "Are you kidding me? Faith?" Like again, and then you start looking into it, and then like, "Hey, this is the most awesome topic I can speak on." Right? So vaping, woo, pretty pumped up. All right, good. Some of you are here with you have to be. You're in like the substance abuse class, right? Substance abuse is a big part of my life as an emergency physician. I knew it was going to be when I was a medical student, so when I did the psych rotation, I opted for this option in substance abuse. I did this inpatient substance abuse rotation in psychiatry, just to hang out with people who are, at rock, not literally, but metaphorically at rock bottom. Literally rock bottom, that's Boy Scouts, we do that. metaphorically, substance abuse. This is something that is really come out of nowhere. It's caught public health people by surprise in the last few years. And there are a lot of wicked problems, hard things in public health we have to deal with. I'm sorry, there are not a lot of wicked problems. They're mostly let me rephrase that. There are a lot of things we feel like we know what we want to happen. Everybody agrees, but how to get there is hard. Getting people to lose weight, stop smoking, or whatever. There are a lot of areas where public health officials are in violent disagreement about the way ahead. And vaping is one of those areas where we're really sort of trying to figure it out. I was given a set of mandate by the American College of Emergency Physicians to rewrite their tobacco policy. And I worked with a couple other physicians, and by the time we were done, we sort of, we couldn't really follow through on what they asked us to do because there wasn't really science to support the assertions. We just wrote up what was true and gave it back to the board, and they ended up adopting it. But I think this is the fourth time I've talked about vaping. I spoke about it yesterday at the University of Utah. It's another college in Utah. In the dental school of all places, because they're kind of into this mouth and this oral fixation, the dental guys. And they're interested in it because they see a lot of people get cancer from tobacco products, and so they kind of want to know what they should recommend to the patients who are trying to quit smoking. And that's the question about vaping. Is this like a great boon that's going to help people wean themselves from cigarettes? Or is this like the coming plague, as is feared by a lot of folks, where a lot of people who weren't going to smoke or smoke, and the fear, the term of art you hear is the renormalization of tobacco, right? The glamorization again of tobacco. You guys all know renowned climate scientist Leonardo DiCaprio, probably getting a Nobel Prize or something here. I think he's in like a Golden Globes or whatever. But he's vaping, right? He's a cigarette smoker, right? So this is indoors in California, right? This is like the most anti-smoking place in the world. Leonardo DiCaprio, and nobody looks better in a tuxedo than Leonardo DiCaprio. Glamorous, most glamorous movie star. Here he is sucking on a e-cigarette. Like, really? Yeah, and so why are we concerned? Well, because it has been hard work, right? I was talking earlier with Whitney about the progress we've made in the United States. We get beat up a lot. Your average lifespan is not as good as Sweden's, right? You're fat, right? But we are killing it, right? For cigarette smoking in the developed world, we're leading the way. Europe, they smoke like chimneys. Forget about Asia. Look out, right? It's like 1945 there, like doctors advertising cigarettes in China. In terms of the cigarette usage, it's literally 50% of the population. We've come a long way. We don't want to see these gains reversed. Okay, so that's why people are a little bit of a panic about this new vaping thing, and nobody knows what's going on. What is it? So when I actually started giving talks about vaping, it was just to educate my colleagues about what is vaping. Like the ER doctors, that are seeing patients in the emergency room want to know about it because they hear about this, like batteries explode and. Can you get like acute lung injury? Do I need to treat these people like they came in from like a house fire? What's the deal? What is vaping anyway? So just kind of bringing people up to speed is kind of how I started speaking about it, and I appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak to you. You're a little bit different audience than I usually address because I'm not in an academic institution. I'm just a working, work-a-day Joe, punching a clock, right? Working for the man. Like you will be too if you go into public health. Until I told you earlier, you got two choices: the man or academia. So figure it out. We work for the man, probably. I work for the man, and this is where I work. And every day I walk past this sign on campus, the hospital at Launchville. This is you don't know this hospital. You guys are young, but if you ever heard about like people being flown out of Iraq or Afghanistan into Europe on their way back home if they're injured in combat, they come here. So this is our big military hospital in Europe. And we're hardcore about getting people off of tobacco. We've gone beyond this tobacco-free workplace concept into this concept we're calling tobacco-free workforce, right? I mean, if you work for us in healthcare, it's now against Army regulation for you to smoke, dip, vape during duty hours or while you're in uniform. Like it's against, Army regulation carries basically the weight of law. in the Army. So if you're active duty Army, like you could potentially, literally be, punitively punished for violating this. If we're getting serious about it. Are we enforcing that yet? No. We have problems with the unions, with our civilian employees, trying to say stuff like that. You hired me 20 years ago, it was okay to smoke, what's the difference now? We're working it out, but we're also concerned, like the public health community, about where this is going. I'm going to show you an 8-minute video now. It's going to kind of just sort of introduce you to the culture and so forth. Some of you are like coming from zero with the vaping thing because you're Mormon and stuff, smoke or vape or any of that stuff. Like me. So this is one of the best videos out there to kind of just introduce the topic. Is Hipster from Wired Magazine, and we'll go from there. You get this sense from watching that this isn't just about nicotine replacement. There's something else going on here. You've got this, the narrator is this former smoker who's willing to try it on camera, maybe get sucked back into this vaping world. And there's this whole culture around it, right? Vape shops, it's kind of this Wild West environment in terms of what's in these little bottles, the manufacture of the devices themselves. Samsung can't even make like a Galaxy 7 without it blowing up, right? And like you said, these things are made like in, who knows what the standards are. The FDA is not been regulating them. It's not been in the business, but they're getting there. Okay, so they already announced in 2016, we're coming. So get ready. We are going to be regulating it as of 2018. So everybody has 2 years to get their stuff together, both in terms of the hardware and the software, the e-juice. And this means full compliance with FDA regulations. You're going to be demonstrating that your label's accurate, that if you've got stuff in there that's not nicotine, what is it, what's the health risk, and so forth. This burden of regulation is a little too much for mom and pops, selling e-juice out of their trunk of their car. Okay, so what's happening? There's a little bit of consolidation. Who do you think is buying these assets? Philip Morris, okay. So this is the future. They know this. They know where this is going, and the three big tobacco companies are very interested in this technology, coming up with their own proprietary technology as well, so, that they can control and sell and so forth. These are products. You got a picture on the FDA website. This is one of the problems. Like I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. If I was going to vape, they make pipes that look like Gandalf's pipe that I can vape with. I'm totally doing that. Oh. If I was going to vape. I'm just saying, and I'm not. They all look a little different, but it's kind of the same concept. There's mostly two components to these devices, and then there are iterations. There's a big battery. That's most of the device, actually, and then there's a holding tank. Or maybe there's not a holding tank. There's just a wick. And vaping basically means it's just like you heat up a frying pan. You're gonna make a pancake. You drop a little water on it, it sizzles, and then and it sizzles. It makes the steam. That's what it's doing. Okay, it's just really impractical to carry around a frying pan. So and it's not cool looking. So you're using this stuff. And then the more common ones, the ones I'm seeing at least in Germany are these big ones. They look like you saw them on the video. It looks like a big deck of cards with a pipe sticking out of it. And they're popular because they got bigger batteries. They make the coil hotter. You inhale larger quantities of vapor. You get a better nicotine hit. And this one, it's not a tank model. You're just doing what they call dripping. You open it up, decide like today I want Fruit Loops, and screw it on, and then you vape your Fruit Loops. Just a wick, really low tech. Amazingly low tech. They vary a lot in terms of how much power they draw, how hot the coils get. And this is kind of the challenge for scientists is that what are people inhaling? I don't know. In a laboratory I can create a simulation of vaping, but they find they're just wildly varying, even using the same equipment. Because people are using different juices, they got all kinds of custom settings, air intakes and so forth. It's really hard to say what you're getting, whereas you smoke a cigarette, relatively, even and reproducible absorption. The real issue that's got everybody concerned is this stuff, right? This is the e-juice, the liquid nicotine. It's sort of new and unprecedented public health problem in all the ways they talked about. And what's in this stuff, right? I mean, if I were going to recommend it to you, I'd have a hard time recommending a product, right? Like if you're a smoker trying to quit, I mean, what's in Clouds of Hope, right? What is in Essence of Tattooed Naked Lady or whatever this is, right? Like I have no idea what's in it. And I'll talk about that in just a second. Nicotine used to be hard to overdose on. Like a little kid, first of all, it's usually a little kid because their body's small, so they need less nicotine to overdose. And then they're the only ones stupid enough to chew a cigar or cigarettes to the point of getting sick on it. Like who does that, right? Like a 2-year-old, that's it. So, but now you've got, this looks like Space Jam, right? Or whatever. Cherry flavored, it literally is cherry flavored, maybe. It tastes good, it looks good. And you drink the bottle, there's enough in some of these bottles to kill 2 adults. Forget about, a toddler or whatever. And they're not childproof and they're just hanging out. So this is why we've seen 1,500% increase. Whenever you see 1,500% increase in anything in public health and epidemiology, this is a new phenomenon because it's just a little bit of small numbers effect where, last year you had 1, now you have 15, so it's gone up, it's new. It's hard to, it's something that's been around, it's hard to see that kind of increase. So is it a cessation tool? Can it be a cessation tool? This is the question. This is the question that the American College of Emergency Physicians had. Should we be recommending this or not? And this is a hotly contested issue, and the line has been drawn across the Atlantic Ocean. I live on the side of the ocean where there has been a flat-out, straight-up official statement made that e-cigarettes are a potentially valuable cessation tool. So this is the UK's equivalent of, the CDC has come out and said, look, evidence is good enough that we can say e-cigarettes can help some people quit, okay? And it's hard to say that that's absolutely false. In fact, there are studies that say that's true. There are studies that say it's true and there are studies that say it's false. Hence controversy, right? If all the studies said one thing or the other, there's no controversy. Everybody knows what to do. But there's controversy because the better studies tend to actually suggest that there is a subpopulation of smokers who can use it to quit. So I'd say that way to evidence leans that way. In the United States, though, this is heresy. There's an angry dentist in the back of the room at the end of my lecture yesterday who went on a 2-minute rant about the evils of nicotine. And I don't want to say that I don't want anyone to leave this thinking that I think nicotine is bad. The question is not is nicotine bad, the question is the relative risk, right, of smoking versus vaping. In the United States, the Surgeon General came out with a report, I want to say this was last November, just a couple of months ago, the end of November. And about cessation, all they said is, yes, more research is needed on the role of e-cigarettes in facilitating or hindering cessation of conventional cigarettes. That is a true statement, all right? So this is the thing, too. You read both of these reports, they're 180-degree opposite takes, emphasis, but honestly, both are kind of right, okay? It's just what we're choosing to emphasize in the United States versus what they're choosing to emphasize in the UK. Who smokes more, the US or the UK? The UK by a lot, so to them it's all about harm avoidance. Well, let's say I buy this and I go, Dr. Westhoff convinced me this is a great cessation tool. What do you recommend? I worked in a clinic for a couple of years where we help people quit smoking. They come in and counsel, they get to me, I'm a physician, so they're there for drugs, right? Chantix, Zyban, or patches, nicotine replacement products. So we talk about the risks and benefits of all those, and if you go with nicotine replacement, there's like a plan, like for the first week, I've done the calculations. You smoke 2 packs a day, therefore you need so many micrograms, per hour, and I want you to do it in the mornings, evenings. Like it's all dialed in. And it's pharmaceutical grade nicotine, you know, and we got a formula and that's been researched and, you know, validated and so forth. But what are you going to say if you want to endorse this? Like, okay, for the first week, I want you to do Clouds of Hope, and then I want you to go to just find some Fruit Loops flavor, and then maybe they could tattoo lady stuff. And then you should be just ready to go after that. Like, what? And what vaporware? Like, we have no idea, right? What you're getting in this stuff. In fact, we've studied the liquids themselves because that's the easiest thing to do. Here's a study just published last year. They bought a bunch of this e-juice and they tested it in the laboratory. And basically, does the label match what's actually in it, right? So on the bottom, here's what the label says. You got 15 milligrams per ml. Look at the, you know, and then you see the range of, and they're varied from in the 40% up to 131%. And then there's separate studies that say even if you buy the same stuff, Clouds of Hope, 5 different bottles of Clouds of Hope, different levels of nicotine. You buy something that says there's no nicotine in it, it's just for making cool tricks, there's some nicotine in it, right? Or where it's got 5 and there's nothing in it, right? It's a wild west, right? I don't know what's going on. Like, you cook meth, and when you're done with that batch, you make some e-juice. Hopefully you didn't use your own meth before you started making it. But the QA, you know, on this stuff, this is not pharmaceutical grade. So it's really hard as a physician to endorse this as like, you just feel like you're saying, like, you know, I'm out of Percocet. Would you just go to the corner of 8th and like Main, and there's this dude named Guido, and just have him hook you up, right? You get some pills there. Percocet's a white, you know, round. He'll help you. Like, what? Did you just submit a Guido? Right? Like, that's what I'm doing here. If I'm going to recommend this to you as a patient, like, essentially I'm saying, hey, you go to somebody's van and buy some, you know, something in a bottle. All right, you with me? See, that's a problem. That's not good medicine, right? Doing that. But maybe it's better, right? I mean, it's no question if you're like a high school senior and you say, hey, Dr. Westhoff, I don't like where my life is going. I was thinking of picking up a new hobby. What do you think about vaping? I would say, are you out of your mind? Give you a 2-minute rant about all the health problems just from nicotine alone. Never mind all the other stuff in there. Come on, kid. Stay in school. Don't do drugs, right? But if you're a 2-pack-a-day smoker, you're 37 years old, you started smoking when you're 11. I see people like this. They're always from Oklahoma for some reason. They start smoking when they're 11 in Oklahoma. Yeah, right. And so this amazing pack your history at a tender age, and you're just going, I can't quit. I've tried Chantix, I've tried Zyban, Lutrin, the patch just becomes, what do you think about the vaping? Like, yeah, you know, maybe don't Guido. I don't know. Clouds of Hope. Honestly, like, how can it be worse? I mean, really, how can it be worse? You're doing 2 packs a day, right? Well, and let me explain how it could be worse and maybe how it's not worse. This is what's in, we know in the e-juice. They're basically all this recipe, okay? So usually a 50-50 blend of propylene glycol, which is a man-made substance. You've inhaled this, you've vaped this already. You ever go to see like Phantom of the Opera? Sorry, I keep forgetting about the camera.
You're okay.
You go to see Phantom of the Opera or some stage production, the theater fog rolling off, you're vaping. That's propylene glycol, right? It is antifreeze, but it's FDA approved for human use, so it's in systems wherever there's and you need an antifreeze that could leak into the food, they use propylene glycol, right? So you ingest it as a humectant, it keeps your, you know, those fake chocolate donuts you buy at, I used to eat them a lot when I was a beauty student. The fake chocolate donuts like by Hostess or whatever at the gas stations, you know, stuff, that kind of product, they need to keep moist. It's usually actually polyglycerin, but both of these are used in food products, not cancerous, generally accepted as safe as the category, which is about as good as you can get because it's, hard to prove a negative thing, right? That I talked about it earlier. So they're safe. There's no question eating them is safe. But you know what? Tabasco sauce is safe. If you inhale it, what do you think? We call it chemical pneumonitis, right? Like, that's bad. Bad. Do not inhale Tabasco sauce. I've seen people vape Tabasco sauce on the internet, right? YouTube videos. You can Google it later. It's so the question isn't is it just safe to eat? Is it known to not be carcinogenic? The question is, what about when you put it in your alveoli in your lungs? That's safe. That's a different question. And that's what Dr. Leventhal and the guys at USC are trying to say, like, I don't know, what happens when you put this stuff in there. The real question, though, is the flavoring, because there are flavors we know are carcinogenic. Now, they're a minority, mostly with our big question mark. He talked about diacetyl, which is the butter popcorn flavor. It's actually been removed from most of these e-juices already because they're kind of onto that. The makers of these things and the consumers are kind of savvy, and they got groups online, they talk, and they know to avoid diacetyl. It causes something called bronchiolitis obliterans, which is another way of saying bad mojo with your lungs. It sounds bad. Obliterans. Your lungs have been obliterated. Like diacetyl. It sounds dangerous too, doesn't it? Agent Orange. So the nicotine, that's a whole talk. So it causes increased mortality after MIs. It causes all kinds of brain problems and young developing brains. The changes that are immediate and lasting, permanent. It's bad. Nicotine addiction is bad. It's crippling to people. Stay away from it. So make that clear. There's no dentist in here, is there? So it's bad. But it's also in the cigarettes, and it tends to be there in less quantities, right? It tends to be lower. Miscellaneous, I don't know. You mass spec this stuff, there's like 80 to 100 different things in it. You mass spec cigarette smoke, there's like 4,000 things in it. And everything that's bad that's in vape is in smoke in much higher quantities. And in the smoke, there's carbon monoxide, which is not in the vape. And there's the tar and all that burnt products of combustion. There is some combustion in what I'm calling thermal degradation. So you start with this stuff, you don't necessarily end with this stuff. Of course, still there's propylene glycol and so forth, but you'll generate like acrylenes, that kind of burnt fat smell when you burn fats. Because glycerin is just the backbone of a triglyceride. It's a naturally occurring substance. You burn it though, and it's acrolein. And these are known carcinogens, right? The hotter the coil, and the coil's going to be hotter, and a nice high-end $400 rig, then the more formaldehyde there is, right? And at the top levels, you can get formaldehyde levels approaching cigarette smoke, but it tends to be much, much less. So much less than, guess who? British come out and actually said e-cigarettes are around 95% safer than smoked tobacco. Could you give a better advertising line to a manufacturer of Tobacco and his band? 95% safer, right? That is quite a statement. What does it even mean, right? Like, it's not a clinical endpoint. Nobody's done like a prospective trial and seen 95% less of any clinical endpoint. Pick one, I don't care. It's not been done. There are some studies that show like vapors tend to have better blood pressures and so forth. There's some real compelling and it's coming out all the time. But it's not been proven, and it's nothing like 95%. What they're talking to when you read the report is they're talking about that there is in vape, so much junk, and in tobacco smoke 95% more junk. Like, it's just a statement about the quantity of the garbage. That's all. Not about the impact or whatever, okay, of it, the clinical impact of this stuff, just how much junk there is. And that's, well, I'll say that's not evidence-based, it's not an evidence-based approach. It's plausible, it's compelling, it's principles-based, right? Like there does tend to be a dose-response curve associated with, things like radiation, ionizing radiation if you're doing your homework, not ionizing radiation. And toxicologic, so the drug, you increase the drug, you get more of the effect. Anyway, this is crazy talk to us in the United States. And the Surgeon General, as you would imagine, came out with this statement: the use of any tobacco product, including e-cigarettes, among young people is unsafe. Again, 100% true, right? Just a different focus. There is no safe way to do nicotine. Absolutely not. And if you're naive to nicotine, there's nobody that thinks that that's controversial. Do not vape. Nobody. The British people don't want you doing that. Their focus isn't on young people starting a vaping habit. Their focus is on the 37-year-olds who smoke 2 packs a day, trying to get those people to stop doing it. So the question is it a gateway tool? Are you taking people who wouldn't otherwise smoke. This is the opposite way of what you saw earlier, right? The non-smoker would have never become a smoker, but now there's vaping. Does he become a smoker? Like, are there people like this? And if there are, so how many? I don't know, but I'll tell you, this dude right here, this young person is not like trying to kick, I don't think he's vaping because he wants to quit his smoking. I think he likes vaping. He's in the world championship of vaping tricks, okay? So you know, he's kind of into vaping for vaping's sake. Who knows if there's nicotine in what he's doing? Probably there is. By the way, there's some artistry these people do amazing. What you saw on the Wired thing, you guys, I heard like, ooh, pretty. That's a problem, right? Even BYU students are mesmerized by the vaping propaganda. And that, there's stuff online to make that stuff look like, you know, child's play. It's amazingly, you know, complex designs and tricks and things that people can do with this stuff. I'm watching these videos, getting ready for the talk, the first time I talked on this, and my 13-year-old says, you know, Dad, it is pretty cool. I was like, are you kidding me? You know, this is why we're so worried. So in high school tobacco users, vaping up 900%. So this is the data from the MMWR, which is the CDC's Morbidity Mortality Weekly Report. Gold standard, what's up? This is like the Twitter of public health, like the big dog. And 900% increase, the Surgeon General echoed this. If I just show you this red line, you'd be like, where do we sign up? To March. This is a crisis, right? But what if I showed you the blue line by itself? You're like, wow, good job, public health. Continuing to win, right? And then all tobacco, so it includes everything, basically flat. Is there a crisis? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where this is going, you know, from a population level. Are we going to have in the net, you know, more smokers than we would have if vaping hadn't come on the scene? Nobody knows this. They argue about it, but nobody knows for sure. But I'll tell you what worries me. It's not just this, it's this. All right? Because if you can put nicotine into these things, what else can you put? They do. So you just have to Google e-joint, right? Hash oil. I mean, they put everything. I told you Tabasco sauce, urine, testicle sweat. Somehow that's different from other sweat. But whatever you can do to get some likes on YouTube or whatever, people are vaping and have tried it for fun and profit on the internet, right? So how long is it before it's ecstasy, PCP, or whatever? And it's not like you're at a, I always want to say like Rolling Stones or something, like dating, I need something heifer. And then I'll try like Coldplay, like you are old if you think that's heifer. So you faded paper figures or something, concert, and you can smell the marijuana. You can't smell marijuana in this form. It looks like nicotine vape. It smells like Fruit Loops or whatever they made it smell like, right? And so that guy vaping behind the high school, he's no longer maybe just, you know, surreptitiously smoking. It's marijuana or whatever they chose to put in it. Maybe they don't even know what it is. Maybe they got a bottle of Clouds of Hope and somebody spiked it. Somebody asked me at the dental school about how about day rate drugs or whatever. Like, somebody's going to think of that. Right? I don't know what could go on these things. It is a normalized, socially acceptable, becoming socially acceptable platform for delivery of the drug of your choice. Okay, and this scares the heck out of public health people. So we are really nervous about the recommendations of the British because we just don't think they've really thought this through. Now they may say, you know what, we don't care, it's worth it. Because if I can get a guy, even if he doesn't quit smoking, if he smokes 20 cigs a day and now he smokes 5 a day in vapes, yeah, probably his chance, it's probably his risks have gone down. So good, you know, it's a net good. I don't know, but it's we'll see in the long run. It takes 20, 30 years to get long-term data because you can't rush that stuff. We'll see. I am going to be around, so if you've got questions, I know some of you have to get to class, but thank you for your time. And, stay in school, don't do drugs.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
But I went to the 6 shop and then they said they have to be 9